It's Thursday, the 25th of April, 2024, Anzac Day. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories in 5 minutes. Let's go. Story number 1, big news yesterday. The inflation rate accelerated to a higher than expected 1% during the March quarter, pushing out the timing of any interest rate cuts, possibly till next year.
The quarterly result was up from 0.6% in the final 3 months of last year, but the full year dropped from 4.1% to 3.6%. That was the good news, not that there was much in those numbers yesterday. The quarterly result demonstrates the challenge facing the Reserve Bank as it tries to manoeuvre inflation into its 2 to 3% target band. It also puts pressure on the federal government to deliver an austere budget in a little under 3 weeks, one that won't lead to more inflation. Of great significance is that the Reserve Bank's preferred measure, trimmed mean inflation, which takes out most of the volatile price items, well, it was also up 1% for the quarter. It basically says that higher prices were widespread, though they were particularly large around rents, education, food and beverages, and tobacco.
Sean, really, what I think we all want to know, well, what I want to know right now is, what does this mean for interest rates?
Well, any reduction in rates before September is now extremely unlikely, and even then the Reserve Bank would need to see very, very low inflation during the June quarter and think that the economy is slowing too much. So that sort of pushes us out to very late in the year, perhaps early next year. In fact, given there was a re-acceleration of inflation, you're going to start hearing people talking about the chance of a rate hike, believe it or not. But Michael, as you know, the trend is your friend in economics. I think it's too early to go down that rate hike path. Yesterday's numbers put inflation on track to meet the Reserve Bank's forecast of price rises below 3% by the middle of next year. Bottom line, the earliest rate cut would be very late this year.
On to story number 2 now, Sean. Federal Communications Minister Michelle Rowland says the government is considering age limits for children on social media as the stoush with ex-owner Elon Musk over graphic footage of a church stabbing continues.
Ms. Rowland says age verification is a live issue being discussed with departments in the e-safety office, though there is no silver bullet. She says the review of the Online Safety Act aims to make sure the regulator has the necessary tools to take action. That, of course, blew up over the past week or so with Elon Musk fighting the e-safety directive to take down that footage of that church stabbing. The review is also looking at other issues. According to Ms. Rowland, she said it's looking at, and I quote, harm to children, including by having recommender systems that push content like misogynist rubbish, eating disorder videos of children.
Story number 3, ASIO boss Mike Burgess says there's a 50% chance that a terrorist act is being planned in Australia in the next 12 months.
Mr. Burgess, addressing the National Press Club yesterday with Australian Federal Police Commissioner Rhys Kershaw, says all ideologies can lead to extremism. The most likely attack will come from an individual or a small group of individuals that go to violence with little or no warning. Mr. Burgess also says children are increasingly being radicalised and are making up an increasing share of his agency's counter-terrorism work. Mr. Kershaw from the AFP addressed counter-terrorism raids that were taking place yesterday in Sydney that followed the stabbing of a religious leader in a church last week. He said the AFP has to make lawful interventions to prevent further planning or attack on our communities.
Story number 4, this is an interesting one, Sean. Oil and gas giant Woodside faced angry protesters at its AGM in Perth yesterday who are demanding board renewal and a more aggressive decarbonisation plan.
Michael, it is interesting, but every Fast 5 story is interesting, so I don't think you need to say it, to be honest.
I'm sorry, I should not point that out. Please go on.
Woodside has an aspiration to be net zero by 2050 and released an 84-page plan on how it's going to do it, but that wasn't enough for many shareholders, including very large shareholders, who want the chief executive, Meg O'Neill, to come up with a more climate-friendly strategy. At the annual general meeting yesterday, the climate action plan was voted down, as in it didn't receive majority shareholder support, though Chair Richard Goyder, who's also under fire for not doing enough, was re-elected. Mr. Goyder and Ms. O'Neill stand by the company's defeated climate action plan. They've promised the company could thrive through the energy transition and be part of the solution to climate change.
Last one, story number 5, also interesting, Sean. Tesla's share price jumped 13% in after-hours trading following Elon Musk's announcement that the company will launch new, cheaper EV models early next year.
Previously, the timing was mid-2025 and the comments overwhelmed what was otherwise an underwhelming performance by the world's largest EV maker. Earnings were below expectations, revenue was down 9% and margins were squeezed by the emergence of stronger competitors like China's BYD. Tesla's share price is down about 50% from its peak, or at least it was down 50%. Then it rose yesterday. The news about cheaper vehicles has convinced some investors that Mr. Musk can perhaps turn around the company's fortunes.
All right, that's it. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Thursday, the 25th of April, 2024. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. If 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 business news by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.